beaming from Pacific Junction Hotel to Earth.
Thank you again for taking the time to do this. I appreciate that. I know you're super busy.
No, thank you.
Yo, welcome to my Summer Lair. I'm your host, Sammy Younan. For today's program, I have an incredible guest. Her name may not be a household name, but her work certainly is. Her work is astonishing. If you've seen anything by David Fincher since like Fight Club, you've seen her work. Please introduce yourself and what it is you do. This is so cool.
Hi, I'm Laray Mayfield, and I'm a casting director.
All right, a casting director. Would you consider yourself, if this is an accurate analogy, would you consider yourself like human Tinder? Because you reject a lot of people. You're constantly searching for the right one, Mr. Right or Mrs. Right. And there's a vague intimacy with auditioning. So is human Tinder kind of an accurate analogy?
Well, no, because I don't reject people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not a rejection process. It's just, you know, you meet and you read a lot of actors, and then there are those that just seem that they fit the role more appropriately for a number of reasons than other people you might have auditioned.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever find that volume kind of intimidating, or do you just enjoy the whole process, like you're like a detective?
It's intimidating at times. Yeah, it's overwhelming, but I enjoy the process. And you know, when you have a lot of people that are interested in being in your project, that's always a very nice thing.
Yeah. And how does the process work these days? Is it still is it self-tape, or do you prefer the actors being in the room so you can kind of see
them? It's a lot of self-tape, and I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because nowadays there is so much work going on for actors, and much of it is not in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a way that I get to see actors from all different kinds of locations than just to see actors that are, you know, just in LA. We do sessions, of course. We always see people in person, but our first big sweep is usually done through tape. And also, not only, you know, are people many times not even in Los Angeles, but if they're in Los Angeles, they could very easily be working and not be available on the days that we're doing sessions. So it's also really nice for them to be able to, and for me, to be able to see those actors via self-tape.
Mm-hmm. There's a 2013 documentary on casting called Casting By. And
yeah.
I guess you've seen it, right? So.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I want to bring up one of Taylor Hackford's comments. He's the director of Ray. I know it's a little controversial, but his comment was, the reality is you're not a director. As you said, you're a casting director, and he said you're not a director, and we take exception to being called a director. You're a casting person, casting by, but I do not call them directors because they're not. And I guess from your reaction already, you don't feel that this has merit, like he's inaccurate then.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not the director.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I also didn't name us casting directors. I didn't do that.
I know.
You know, that was something that came long before me.
Mm-hmm.
But there's director of photography. There's, you know, there's the word director is used in other heads of department.
Mm-hmm.
But we do direct the casting.
Mm-hmm. And I guess it's just the role itself, what you actually do and what you bring to the table is kind of like hidden from the public. That's why it's interesting to talk to you.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately the choices are collaborative, and the choices are always up to the director in film.
Mm-hmm.
In television, it's usually the producers and showrunners, because directors come and go with each episode, and they don't start when we all start.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I mean, I think he's digging around looking for a reason not to give casting directors more credit, and that was kind of a lame excuse that he came up with.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to tell him that if I ever get the opportunity to see him.
All right, we'll have to. That'll be interesting.
He sounds like he's just a grumpy old guy to me.
Okay, there we go. We're getting to the honest part of the interview now. You said like it's a collaborative process, but what happens when you feel like in your gut that this actor is the right actor for the character, but the showrunner or the producer or the studio or somebody disagrees with you? What happens with those conversations?
You know what? They're really great conversations. You know, I think it's important that we don't all always agree, and it's also very important that we see from every side what someone thinks is a strength or a weakness of an actor as it pertains to the role that we're casting. I'm pretty fortunate that a lot of the people that I work with, we have very similar taste and we agree on lots of things. And if we don't maybe agree always on my first choice, the person that they do settle in on is someone that I thought was really, really talented and great. There has been a time or two, never with David, but on other jobs where someone did get cast that I absolutely did not feel was right for the role. And, as it turned out, they weren't right for the role. And it was glaring. And sometimes it gets pointed out in the press, and sometimes people say, "Hey, what was that?" But it is what it is, And particularly when you're casting, well, it's if you're doing anything where a group of 5 or 6 people make a decision, that's not always easy to get 3 people to decide on the same thing, much less 5 or 6.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's sometimes even difficult to get people to go to the same place for lunch.
Exactly.
And then what about, how does scheduling, when you have an actor or even budget? I mean, like, David Fincher is a good friend with Brad Pitt, but obviously he couldn't get him from Mindhunter because of, like, budget.
Well, he didn't ask him, Brad was doing other things. Brad wasn't even available for Mindhunter, so
Okay.
that wasn't a conversation.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. So, like, how does then scheduling and then budget kind of fit into the work that you do?
Well, I mean, it's everything, because you can't hire somebody that's not available when you're shooting. So that just right off the bat puts people, makes people not available. And, of course, we always have budgets that we have to adhere to and maintain. And, sometimes you can go to someone who maybe is what you think out of your budget a bit and say, we have this project, but this is what we have. Is it something you would consider? And, sometimes they'll say yeah, and sometimes they say no. But yeah, we always have a budget that we have to maintain and honor.
In terms of casting, is there any type of roles that you get that may seem a little bit more difficult to cast than others, like an older woman or a certain type of character, like Bill Tench's son, for example, like trying to find a kid like that? Is there certain characters that are hard to cast than others?
Yeah, the more specific and the more unique and the more precise particular things that this character needs to have, then sometimes it does make it a little more difficult, of course, But it's just as fun. And it's, the challenge is really nice, and you feel really good when you've done it, and you're like, wow, that worked out pretty good.
You really enjoy this process, like, from the beginning to the end of it, because you're at the very beginning of the thing.
Exactly.
Right? So nothing's been shot yet, whatever. Everything's still on paper, but you like from the time you get involved to seeing the final product then.
Well, yeah, I mean, but, my job is finished before shooting ever begins on a movie.
Yeah.
Unless it's a movie that goes on for 6 or 9 months, and then sometimes it's a little hard to cast roles now that won't work till next year. But most of the time a movie is, lasts 3 months perhaps, a shoot schedule. So, about the time they start shooting is about the time I wrap up. Now on TV we work until the very last shoot day, because we begin in the early stages with casting all the series regulars and any large recurring roles, but then we're working on every episode for the other roles that are written into those episodes.
I don't know if power is the right word, but like when you're casting somebody in a project like a David Fincher movie or TV show, are you aware that this will open up more doors for them? This will help increase their career. It's a good feeling, isn't it? Like when you can cast somebody.
Yeah, I'm very aware of that. It's a great feeling, and I'm very appreciative of that part of my job. And I also know, particularly with David, that it's a wonderful opportunity for every actor because they learn so much from him, and he is a director that most of the time is at the top of their list of directors they'd like to work with.
Why is that? Why do people kind of gravitate towards David Fincher? I know that's an obvious question, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Because he's the best at what he does. You know, I mean, there is a handful of directors that are of his level who are auteurs, and they are renowned, and you know, all actors gravitate towards wanting to be able to work with them, as do crew people. You know, it's a very, very, very fulfilling experience on every level.
And the story goes that in 1986, you, David Fincher, and Jodie Watley walked into a bar. Is that how the three of you got together, or you kind of met?
No.
No.
Jodie Watley?
Yeah.
No. No, I came to LA in 1986 because I had a boyfriend here who was a music video director, and he was at a little company where David was, and that's where we met. And that was the first day I came to LA.
And how is it working with him in terms of the casting? Like you said, you've kind of already alluded to it, but like, I guess by now you guys have a shorthand where he kind of gives you a little bit more reign, and he's able to communicate what it is that he's looking for much more easily.
Yeah, well, David always has done that very easily because he's very, very specific. But you know, it's you just. There's no comparison to a relationship where you've known someone and worked with them for 33 years to somebody that you just met or you'd only worked with a couple of times. You know, it's a lot of fun. David and I have a lot of fun together. We both take our jobs very seriously. He loves actors. I love actors. He loves spending time with actors. So do I. And it's great. We like a lot of the same things, very much so. It's very inspiring, and it's also, he's my dear friend.
Yeah.
He's not just somebody I work with. He's above that, he's my friend first.
Yeah. He just had a birthday, too, so happy birthday, David Fincher.
Yeah.
Was there any bouncy castles, or you said, I guess he's not a big birthday party?
No, he is not a birthday guy.
Okay.
He's great about remembering everybody else's birthday, but he is not much on his own birthday.
All right, fair enough. Moving away from Fincher work for a minute, when you worked on some of the Marvel Netflix shows, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Punisher, what happens when those shows kind of get announced? A lot of nerds begin speculating about who should fulfill, like which actors would work or for certain roles for Kingpin. Do you or the production ever listen to those conversations or see those conversations online, or are you just kind of just...
I don't.
Yeah.
I focus on how the character is described to me and the material that I've been given, and I look for the best actor to fill those roles. And, we've been very fortunate on those shows, and now I'm doing Hulu shows with them, that we've cast fantastically talented actors who are really great, great human beings, and they have stepped into their roles wonderfully, and I think for the most part we got a lot of support from the Marvel fans.
Are you ever aware? I mean, 50 Shades is also, you worked on a couple of the movies as well, 50 Shades Darker and 50 Shades Free, and those also have their own set of fans, obviously not as big as Marvel fans community, but it's still a community of passionate fans. Are you ever, like you said, you just focus on the material, but are you ever conscious or worried about the fans or trying to please them in any way?
No. You can't please, like I said, if you try to get 6 people together, you're not going to please all them. You get 6 million, you're for sure not going to please them all. I have to be happy with what I do, and I have to feel good about what I do, and I have to feel like I am offering up the absolute best for the role and the character, and usually when you do that, and you do it with honesty, and you do it with integrity, and you do it with respect for the fact that there are a lot of fans, then for the most part they're pretty happy with what we do. I always take into consideration that there are a lot of fans that this material is very, very important to, and so for that I want to do a good job. But I don't troll the internet.
Yes.
And I sure don't look at comments because, what's the old saying? People are like assholes. Our opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
No, and it's valid. And I mean, it's a thing, too, like you said. Like, sometimes you...
And I'm not calling them assholes. I'm just saying everybody has an opinion.
No, for sure. I get what you're saying. Because, it like you said, like, you've mentioned, like, other times when, like, you haven't necessarily been happy with the casting. And that the viewers can sometimes see that, too, when the casting's a little off or if it's not quite right.
Yeah.
And that's more what I'm getting at. It's not just being a troll, but more just like, I don't know if that necessarily worked or if I bought that person as a killer or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, look, and you're just not going to please everybody. So the thing that I do is I want to please myself, and I want to please those that have trusted me with this great responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're happy and I'm happy, then I've done a good job. And usually, when we're most of the time we're pretty fortunate, the fans are happy too.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not, I hate that. It's really a bummer, but they also have no idea what goes into making those choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like that's why I highlighted like budget and scheduling and things like that. Because a lot of times people don't realize, they think it's just like once like a show like Daredevil or Punisher is announced, they start going like this guy would be perfect or this person would be perfect, and it's just sometimes those things are not always realistic at all or grounded in any sort of reality.
And they're also sometimes they're just not right.
Mm-hmm.
Just because somebody might think somebody's perfect doesn't necessarily mean that in the terms of what we're looking for and what we're doing, they are perfect. And it's just like it's also just a matter of taste. And people sometimes will go, well, why don't you like this, and why do you like that, and why don't you want this actor, and why don't you like that? And it's like who knows? It's why they make chocolate and strawberry. 'Cause I don't know, why does somebody like chocolate and somebody else wants strawberry, or
Mm-hmm.
somebody wants pizza and somebody wants pasta? It's just a personal preference. It's not based in any sort of anything more, more sophisticated than that.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like attraction, right? Like you can meet a lot of pretty people or whatever, but you're not always gonna be attracted to all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
So, speaking of people, I want to focus on real life people because, for example, before Mindhunter, you were casting people, real life people, in Zodiac and The Social Network, right? Where you had to find a Zuckerberg, you had to find a Winklevoss twins,
Yeah.
and Sean Parker. How does casting a real life person, and in this case, these people are still alive? How does it differ from casting like a made up character?
Well, I mean, it differs greatly in the fact that there is a person out there who either exists currently or has existed that's left quite an impression on sometimes the world, but they've left, if, at the very least, they've left an impression on their world and the people that were in their world. And you want to do what's right by them. And when you can find people, actors who embody a lot of the characteristics that that person had, well, that's always a whole lot better than somebody who was completely different than that person that you're portraying, and so you just start out with the best of intentions, and we've been very fortunate in many situations where we found actors who were pretty much embodied the real people.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also, if you're interested enough to tell a story about these real people, then you should be interested enough in trying to portray them as who they are.
Yeah, you're talking about intentionality.
Yeah.
Did working with David Fincher on Zodiac, did that influence the work on Mindhunter?
I mean, probably on certain levels. I loved Zodiac. I just love that movie. I love that cast. But I mean, on Mindhunter, those were real people. There was a lot of information out there on them, even though they were incarcerated, because they do like to talk,
Yes.
And some of them were very, very famous, very famous. So, I think the fact that you've done something like Zodiac before, and we did that, and we felt really good about what we did and the cast, and it was really well perceived or accepted, then it gives you a little more confidence that you can do it.
What I find fascinating with Mindhunter though is like the killers obviously are all real, and you're casting them according to who they are, But the FBI agents, they're a little bit more renditions of the real FBI agents. They're not quite as accurate necessarily.
So they are not the real guys.
Yeah.
They were, for creative purposes, they are, first thing, there's two of them. John, one person wrote the book. Well, John Douglas wrote it with his partner, but I think John Douglas may have written a book. I might be misquoting this, but I think John Douglas wrote some books on his own.
Mm-hmm. And so it's an interesting tension because it's like the killers are real, and you're even, like you mentioned, like using there's a lot of material out there, and you're using dialogue from the transcripts and things like that. And then the characters are half real, half not, I guess. Is that the best? Like, and so do you have a little bit more leeway then in terms of like casting and how and what you're looking for in terms of when you were putting the FBI agents together?
Yeah, we had a little more leeway in the fact that they weren't real people that we were trying to exactly replicate, but you don't have any more leeway in the fact that these guys were FBI agents, and you need to cast actors who do embody them and pay respect to the men and women who are in the FBI.
Mm-hmm. Is there, this might be a weird question, but is there like a way that like when the actors were coming into the room or when you were watching the tapes, are you looking for some sort of like physical presence between like what an FBI agent would look like and how they would carry themselves versus how a killer would kind of carry himself?
Well, the killers, we were looking for people that looked like the killers, if possible. And none of those actors walked in and carrying themselves like a killer would. They just don't, because they're not. They're wonderful actors, and ironically, most of those serial killers, especially everybody in season 1 and most everybody in season 2, are some of the most gentle, kind human beings you could ever be around in your life. So that absolutely, for them to have that whatever part of their personality that embodied the killers was something that they brought forth in their acting. Just like Holt and John did as FBI agents in their acting, but Holt and John have physical aspects about them that you believe them absolutely, and particularly for that period of time.
Mm-hmm. Holt especially has got that little bit of extra weight, just like as the character just being on the road and just not always eating salad and things like that, and the smoking. Yeah. It kind of it carries him, but he's also kind of got that elder statesman where he's kind of seeing some things in the FBI, and he kind of he's open to Holden's ideas, but at the same time, you could see like he knows how the system works.
Yes.
There's two people, when you and I talked about email, there was two people that kind of stood out to me, and I want to reference those. One was Joe Tuttle. He plays Greg Smith.
Yeah.
He was cast in season 1, as well as Albert Jones. He was the Atlanta FBI agent, Jim Barney. So both of them were cast in season 1, and you didn't know if you were going to be renewed yet. Season 2 hadn't even been written yet. So when you're casting like this for a TV show, are you aware of future seasons and what these characters and actors can do, or and how it'll evolve, or are you just trying to focus on the present and just like focus on this season?
Well, look, we focus on the present because that's what we have is the present. But if we also know that there's a storyline that's going to be coming up for season 2, we make those deals with the actors then. So you do have to take into consideration the next level of work they may be doing in season 2, because it's one thing to cast an actor who comes in and works in one episode and can be fabulously talented, but that doesn't always mean that they translate into being a series regular. But Albert and Joe both were the actors that could carry a little bit of a few episodes, and then a year later, or year and a half later, I don't remember what the distance was from
about 2 years.
1 to 2, can carry a much heavier load, and that was very, very apparent.
Yeah,
both of those guys.
For sure. The one scene that cracked me up was Joe when he was interrogating the killer, and Wendy Carr, the professor, she started talking about being a lesbian, and his jaw dropped. It was just like that sums up the character perfectly. Like he's just in over his head, and he's talking to this killer.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's
he's
like
pretty cool, right?
Yeah, and it's like this woman over here is going about being a lesbian and whatever, and it's just like he he's so far from whatever he's known, and his jaw drop was perfect. And then in season 2, like Albert Jones as the FBI agent trying to be a cultural bridge for the FBI agents, like between Black Atlanta and how this case is going. He was really good. He added like I used an analogy in the email when we were talking, like he added a lot of salt to the scenes because he adds some flavor. So it's like whenever he shows up, he's really kind of cool and he's got a distinct presence.
Yeah.
Going back to the killers, though, it's interesting that the actor that played Manson for you is the same actor that played Manson in Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Damon Harriman. That's kind of unusual, just to kind of keep rolling that way.
Yeah.
You said like for TV you're casting a lot longer because obviously there's a lot more roles to fulfill.
Mm-hmm.
When you're on set, like, are you actively?
I don't go on set.
Okay, I wanted to know if you actively monitor the killers or if there's some sort of like serial killer school or something where you kind of give them a lot of material so that they kind of know what to do and mannerisms, things like that.
Well, and you know, like I said, these guys were famous, beyond famous, and many of them did lots and lots of interviews from jail.
Mm-hmm.
So there was plenty of information to have on them.
And even like Holt, who plays Bill Tench, he even visited and like wrote some killers. I think he wrote to the Son of Sam. Like everyone's kind of doing this like meticulous work and trying to understand, trying to get these details. Is this the type of actors that you're looking for who take this type of initiative? Or is this also just a byproduct of going back to David Fincher and just like his work ethic?
You know what? That's a byproduct of the actor and their process and them doing their research, which makes them feel more. That's definitely a byproduct of the actor. I mean, David wants people to be very well prepared in the development of their character and certainly with their material. But David does not dictate how an actor would go about doing that, ever. He would not.
So far, what you've been saying in terms of Fincher's relationship with the actors and your relationship with David, like, this all boils down to trust.
Yeah.
The actors know that when they come to you, especially because you've been working so much with David Fincher, that they can trust you. In turn, you trust David Fincher. So it's like a mutual kind of understanding.
Yeah, exactly.
This all hanging out and trying to research and trying to identify the killers, cast the killers, all these things, it sounds really dark. Do you do anything for fun?
Yeah, of course I do. I live in Santa Fe most of the time, so when I'm not working, I'm there and I have really dear friends, and I hike, and I have a son and a grandson, and I have my niece and a nephew that I'm super close to, and I have dear, dear, dear friends that I spend lots and lots of time with. So yeah, I have a really sweet, full life that I'm very grateful for, along with work.
Yeah. So just to kind of go back full circle, as we were talking about at the beginning, like, why this area of film and television? Why casting? Why did you end up here?
You know what? David suggested it, quite frankly. I worked as David's assistant, and I would edit casting tapes when they would come in, and one night we were going through casting tapes, and he said, I think this is kind of like your thing. I think this is just like the thing that you do really, like, you just have a natural eye for it. Why don't you try it? And I was like, okay. And he said, all right, we're going to do a Jody Watley video. Why don't you cast that? And I was like, okay. And that's how it started.
And so what are you working on next? Is there anything that you can share or talk about?
Yeah, I'm working on 2 Marvel shows with Hulu, and David's doing a movie that we're working on right now called Mank.
Okay, cool. And are you hoping or expecting season 3 of Mindhunter, or is that still too early considering season 2 just came out?
I think it's too early. I have not heard.
All right. And so we can see you in the Hulu shows, as you mentioned, or see your work again. Thank you so much for taking the time. We covered a lot, actually.
You're super sweet. Thank you for being interested in the art of casting, and thank you for being a fan of the work that I've done, and particularly the work that David and I do together. I really appreciate that.
Please just give him a high five. I know. I guess that's what always the director is happy to hear or have, right? After he's done a good job, is a high five.
He appreciates that. Yes, he's very humble, but he appreciates it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Laray. That's it. I think we covered all the good stuff.
Okay, good. Thank you, Sammy.
Thank you so much, Laray Mayfield, for taking some time to talk about Mindhunter, working with David Fincher, casting, all that good stuff. It's incredible how much and how many people are involved in making something that we really like. If you like what I'm doing here, you can, or if you don't like too, I'm also open for that too. You can yell at me or cheer at me at My Pal Sammy. That's on Twitter, Facebook, and on Instagram. My Pal Sammy. Thanks so much for listening.